Give these idiots the smackdown that they deserve. Untrained, ignorant people who don't have a clue. Ultra-crepidarian, 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 ultra-crepidarian. Untrained, ignorant people who don't have a clue. Untrained, unqualified, ignorant, arrogant individuals. What the hell? What the hell? Untrained, unqualified, ignorant, arrogant individuals. They don't even read Arabic. What the hell? Ultra-crepidarian, 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 ultra-crepidarian. I don't respond to stupidity and foolishness. What the hell? Ultra-crepidarian, 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 ultra-crepidarian. I don't respond to stupidity and foolishness. What the hell? I don't respond to stupidity and foolishness. Ultra-crepidarian. I have rarely come across somebody who is more vulgar, vile, foul-mouthed, vicious, repugnant, depraved excuse of a preacher. What the hell? What the hell? Ultra-crepidarian, 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 ultra-crepidarian. And I wonder, truly, does he know he's lying, or is he mentally insane? Ultra-crepidarian, ultra-crepidarian. Untrained, ignorant people who don't have a clue. Ultra-crepidarian, 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 ultra-crepidarian. Does he know he's lying, or is he mentally insane? What the hell? Ultra-crepidarian, 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 ultra-crepidarian.
Sometimes, yes, ignorance is bliss.
And I wonder, truly, does he know he's lying, or is he mentally insane?
Hallelujah. Let Lord Jesus Christ shine forth. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. Welcome to another live stream with Ministries. And I have Jai Apologetic with me, and we will be talking about the preservation of the Quran or Qurans. God knows what it is. Actually, Allah knows what it is, but we will figure that out hopefully until end of the live stream. We did actually looked at a video maybe over a month ago with Shadir Nasir, where they were discussing about the history of the Quran and then how Quran really very much messed up. We did half of that video, and then today, by God's grace, we will hopefully finish the video and then have a little bit more clear idea regarding if the Quran perfectly preserved or has it ever been changed. Peace of Christ be with you, Jai. How are you?
Hey, sister, peace of Christ be with you and with all of the viewers. Yes, this is something that we started, like you said, around last month, and it's just exposing the holes in the narrative between the lies that Muslims say about preservation of the Quran. That, famously Yasir Qadi said on the infamous deleted interview with Muhammad Hijab. The standard narrative has holes. So we're just kind of exposing those holes, and we're using scholars to do that, such as Shadir Nasir.
I find it's strange that while we are still talking about the holes in the narrative, which kind of in one side of Islamic world is like playing denial game. Other side of the Islamic world is just like, oh, it's all the same. It's like whole and holy. They are like the way you write them. The way you holy and holy, the way you pronounce them, apparently it's, I guess, all the same.
Oh yeah, by the way, speaking about that, I saw a clip the other day. I don't know how old it is, but it was one of those Dawa guys, Abu Musab, where he said, never say holy Quran, don't say holy prophet, this is only for Allah to be holy, So although we're talking about a different type of holes today, a different type of holy, But just a side note for the Muslims who like to call the Quran Holy Quran. Yeah, it's frowned upon by
We
your.
can edit out the video. Like I've got the Muslim scholars who says Holy Quran
Yeah.
versus another Muslim turns up and then says, do not say holy. It's very much
Yeah.
messed up with the holes or without holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Abu Musab. Yeah, that's the guy. So yeah, it's just a short clip. It's under 3 minutes long, and he says, "Do not say Holy Quran. Don't say it."
yeah, and then I'll put to a couple of scholars who says like in their talks, in their teachings, Holy Quran should be fine.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that.
Would you be kind enough? Yeah, would you be kind enough, brother, to remind us? You kind of mentioned that the video was like not alive anymore by Muslims. You verbalized it as the famous interview. Would you be kind enough and then just take us back to 3 years ago and then remind us what happened 3 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So a lot led up to that. One of the things that led up to that was the exposure or expose of the. I think at the time you showed 26 Arabic Qurans with Jay Smith at Speaker's Corner, and that caused a huge problem for the Muslims there. And ever since then, they haven't been able to recover from this topic. So other people's views started to come out about the, 7 Ahruf and then the 10 qira'at or 10 different readings or these different versions of the Quran in Arabic. One of those people's views who came out was Shadi Nasser, but it wasn't public until one of the Dawa people, made it
You mean
public.
Yasir Qadi?
Yeah, what did I say?
I think you said
Oh,
should.
oh,
That's okay.
okay, yeah. Well, Shabir Ali, if I said him, he definitely he's got some things to say about this as well, but he's more on the Yasser Qadi side than the other side. But yeah, so Yasser Qadi, his views were kind of exposed. They were made public by Farid. He's got many different nicknames. Some people call him Farid Leaks. Some people call him Farida. Whatever you want to call him. He leaked some email from Yasser Qadi, where Yasser Qadi expressed his views concerning the topic. So that led to an interview between him and Muhammad Hijab, and in that interview, Muhammad Hijab was pressing Yasser Qadi, and there was a really funny parody about this. But the guy who did it, I think he was just ex-Muslim, but he wasn't like a Christian. He was just ex-Muslim. So when he had the pressure on him from the Muslims, he kind of made the video private and he stopped doing the parody things. But it was a hilarious parody where Muhammad Hijab was just kept pressing Yasser Qadi, pressing him on the topic of his views on the preservation of the Quran. What would you do if I gave you a blank sheet of paper, if I give you a blank book, would you be able to write the Quran? And it's not an easy answer. It's not an easy. He said, yes, it should be an easy answer, and so anyway, that led to a whole bunch of things. The Muslims on Muhammad Hijab's channel and Yasser Qadi's channel were saying, what does he mean by this? What does he mean? It's kind of like recently with Ali Dawa when he said that the scientific miracles have been absolutely debunked, absolute nonsense, and they've been debunked. Muslims kept asking, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Well, they did the same thing to Yasser Qadi and Muhammad Hijab. So what was their response to it? They actually first they disabled the comment section in their video in their channels. They disabled the comment section. So all the Muslims who were saying the doubts, they were all shut down. They weren't able to express their views. And then what they did is they cut out that last 30 minutes or so of the interview where they talked about Yasser Qadi's views concerning preservation, how did things like Ahruf and Qira'at and preservation tie together. That was all cut out. And then eventually the video just disappeared altogether. So you won't find that video on Muslim channels, specifically Muhammad Hijab and Yasser Qadi. You won't find it on their channels. You'll find clips of it on Christian channels and maybe some other channels that deal with Islam, but I'm familiar with the ones on Christian channels. and you'll find clips, bits and pieces here and there. They were trying to copyright strike it for a while. Yasser Qadhi actually he doxed somebody, one of our brothers, Islam Critiqued. He doxed him, and he didn't actually. I shouldn't say he doxed him. He attempted to dox him. The information that he gave out wasn't actually, Islam Critiqued. I think it was his lawyer or something like that. His lawyer's information. Either way, Yasser Qadhi flagged him or reported him for using his video, give him a copyright strike because he was talking about the holes in the narrative. And so what was Yasser Qadhi's response to that? It was to dox him. Hey, this is the guy's name who, I'm having this legal battle with. And he gave his name on Twitter. So that's kind of a very condensed version of what it is. And now we're just talking about this. What are these holes in the narrative? Famously, he said that there are holes in the standard narrative. What did he mean by that? He meant that there are holes in the standard narrative of talking about the relationship between the hadith about the 7 ahruf and the existence of the initially 7 qira'at and then the 10 qira'at and 14, etc. And how do those relate to each other, and how does preservation of the Quran relate to these? So that's what he's saying. There are holes in the narrative and explaining all of these things, and that really blew up, and that's where we are today, 3 years later.
It's heartbreaking to hear from you. Even your story had a hole. I'll fill that hole. Remember, Yasir Qadhi made a video to respond what he really meant.
Yes.
That this very long word.
Our theme song. Yeah, that was our theme song today. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the while everyone was pushing him, what did you mean? What did you mean? Clarify, clarify, clarify. While they express that people are leaving Islam because what has been said, because how the Islamic Dawa gangs deal with that. Yasir Qadhi took the opportunity and then made a video to respond what he really meant. And I guess Allah knows best because it didn't look like he knew what he meant. And there was another interview he had with this famous Muslim who was doing the singing of the Quran.
Oh, yeah.
Remember in that interview, he was clearing up the misconceptions of about Yasir Qadhi, and question came about holes in the narrative.
Yes.
That was another great opportunity for Yasir Qadhi to clear up what he meant, and well, there was nothing at all. So I guess one of the things with your latest live stream you had with Thought of Christ on Tuesday regarding the clarifications and then drama in the Dawa circle.
Yes.
One of the things Yasir Qadhi and sadly, Ali Needs Dawa have is both of them, when they do their clarification videos, are like making those holes like bigger and bigger. So Yasir Qadhi made a clarification video and there was nothing in it. Actually, he made a couple of clarifications video. Nothing in it. Best you could do is go and take his class. Ali Dawa did clarification video, and then he said, scientific miracles are debunked. Yes, debunked, and I'm proud of it. So both of them are kind of have that clarification skills in common. And good thing is their clarification skills are causing people to walk away from Islam. So that's good for us.
Yeah, and we've really learned, like, they've become so predictable to us. In fact, I'll give you an example today. Just today, I saw David Wood tweeted something out about a Muslim scholar who was saying that Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa are, they're creating drama and they're creating problems for the people, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so then shortly after that, he changed the setting on the video where he limited the users or something who can view the video. Maybe only his followers can view it or something like that. But what we've learned was when Muslims put out those videos, you download them because because we know what's going to happen. They're going to end up editing them, chopping them up, or deleting them. And if they're the only ones, Ali Dawa in the interview that Daughter of Christ and I went over, he actually said, "Hey, look, if there's something that makes me look bad, and I have the control, I have the camera, and the other person doesn't have the camera, well, it's not going to go up because I'm the one who has the cameras. I am the one who has the footage." So that's what they do. If they're the only ones who have the footage or the material, then it's going to be in their hands with what happens to it. So when David Wood starts exposing, hey, look, even Muslim scholars are saying that these guys are a problem and they're narcissists and etc. Well, he tries to do damage control and make the video like limited to the people who can see it. So what do we learn? We learn how to deal with Muslims when they expose themselves. We just kind of let them talk. We don't interrupt them, and we download the videos and we just let them talk again. So it's very they use these tactics a lot. Another tactic that not really tactic, but just kind of things that we've learned from the Muslims over the years, how they deal with these things, is that like everybody knew that Ali Dawa was gonna come up with a clarification video. Everyone that was keeping up with it, because we saw the Muslims in the comment section kept saying, "What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this?" And so that's what happens. They're very predictable. The Muslims are very predictable and their behaviors. So Yasser Qadi coming out with a clarification video, multiple clarification videos. We expected all of this, and we also had to download those in case those randomly disappeared off their channels as well.
Just seeing the hole in your story, brother. It's like tonight you've got lots of holes. Are you talking about the gentleman Faris al Hamadi, who
Yes.
he's the
Okay.
gentleman who is what is the Islamic word for it? Who is discipling Andrew Tate?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
the
that's
guy.
that
He
guy.
was discipling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the Islamic
He
term
was
for
the one who was
disciple?
defending him for like the naked picture that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one that was defending him.
Yeah. So that's like his Andrew Tate is his student Parandina. There is another kind of in-house fights is going on within Islamic Dawa circle, and no one is qualified to be Dawa gangs these days.
And you know what's interesting? Before he kind of did this whole YouTube thing, and he was I don't know if he's actually a sheikh or what he is. I don't know, but whatever he's doing now. Prior to this, he used to like own like gym or something in Dubai. He did gyms and used to train people. So it's similar to what Andrew Tate does anyway. In that with so they seem to be have ties with each other on more than one thing. So like training people in the gym, and then also this Islamic this Islam stuff. It seems like they have more than one connection with each other. And then
Yeah,
Andrew Tate speaks very highly about Dubai and things. So there's other connections there.
it seems quite fashionable these days that Muslim men needs to have six packs. So everyone is kind of ending up in places where they can get their six packs. Okay. So holes in the narrative.
Yes, whole narrative.
Those Dawa gangs are just good thing is Lord is using them for his glory. So what we are going to do is we are going to pick up the video which we did approximately a month ago regarding kind of how, according the Islamic tradition, how according the Muslim scholars, Quran has been changed, corrupted, and end up in many different ways. So what we will do is we go through the video, pause it, and then comment on it, bring up resources for you. And if you want to engage with us in the chat, please put @ in front of DCCI Ministries. That will get our attention. And then we take it from there. Hopefully by end of the live stream, you will be all more confident. Yes, there are not only holes in the narrative, but those giant holes are causing giant problems for the world. Brother, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. Let's get started.
Yeah, so we are using video from Shadi Nasir in the intention of critiquing, commenting, and of course continuing to have the discussions.
بالناس بالجهرية بقراءة غير قراءة حفص عن عاصم.
Okay, since we are picking up where we left, just give attention. It seems place approximate we left is going to be with the translation under it, so subtitles. Give attention to that, please.
Can I play from here?
أحسن الله إليكم وبارك في علمكم. هذا سائل يقول: إمام مسجدنا وهو طالب علم أحيانا يصلي بالناس بالجهرية بقراءة غير قراءة حفص عن عاصم، فهل عمله صحيح؟ وما حكم الصلاة خلف هذا الإمام؟
الصلاة صحيحة، لكن هو لا يجوز له ذلك. وقد صدرت فتوى من اللجنة الدائمة بأنه لا يجوز للإمام أن يقرأ بقراءة خارجة عن قراءة أهل البلد. قراءة أهل البلد الآن كلهم على قراءة حفص، فلا يجوز أن يقرأ بقراءة غيرها ويخالف ما عليه أهل البلد ويشوش على الناس. فمثل هذا إذا لم ينتهي يفصل من الإمامة. أما إذا صلى لنفسه هو لا مانع أنه يقرأ بقراءات السبع. إذا صلى لنفسه ما في مانع، لكن يؤم الناس لا، يشوش عليهم. نعم.
Okay, so this is Al Fawzan. He's one of the top authorities in Saudi Arabia, and they issued a fatwa. You can also check that online. There are several opinions for some leaders in congregational prayers. They are trying to introduce readings besides Hafs for Muslims, and from a legal perspective, you have two things here in play. One, do we confuse people? So you are reciting something that people are not familiar with, and the lay Muslim is not familiar really with these other readings. So why are you doing that? If it's really addressed to people who are familiar with the discipline, that's fine. But there's this element of confusion that, of course, this is not a new opinion. You can also trace this opinion back in legal works 400, 500 years ago, that there's always an advice given to the imam that if you are trying to recite the Quran, try to recite it according to the reading of the people of that region. Otherwise, will create some kind of shubha that is not recommended. So again, there's an element of maslaha here that lawyers are mostly interested in. So Al-Fawzan here is not talking from a theological perspective. He's completely talking from a social/legal perspective, and the position is well.
Okay, so let's pause there for a second. So one of the things we hear from Muslims is Muslims are in Morocco, Muslims read and recite different Quran. They use that Quran in their prayer. In Algeria, Moroccan and Algerians use the same Quran. In Saudi, different Quran is being used. In part of Africa, there are different Qurans are being used. Majority of Muslims in Britain follow the Quran, which Saudi kind of encouraged people to gently, it's like in Muslim terms, gently encourage people to follow around the world. And so you will hear claims from Muslims. They would say, "Oh, doesn't matter. I can pray behind the imam who is reciting the Hafs Quran, while the Quran I recite is Warsh Quran." So you will get to hear such a claims from Muslims, because with that idea is, well, it is all the same. Like, there are not many differences. If you can pray behind it, it is all fine. And there is another live stream I think we did while back, where we talked about fatwa in Saudi Arabia, where you cannot use Warsh Quran. Was banned in Saudi Arabia for the prayer, and Algeria banned the Hafs Quran in Algeria. So there are like Qurans in different parts of the Muslim world, and there are differences within them. And those people who follow other Quran should not able to pray behind the Imam when it comes to the comes to how they pray. So in here, Sheikh is being questioned regarding how does that work. Brother Jai, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you are banning the Quran in your like in your own Muslim countries, and you're saying that you're confusing the people. So Muslims want first of all, the Muslims will tell us that there's only one Quran, and you know there doesn't no differences at all from this country to this country. Okay, from this period, like from Muhammad till today. Then they go to another stage and say, okay, yeah, there are differences, there are different versions, but it's just dialects. It's just different ways of saying things. It's just different ways of reciting things. And then once you get them past that, they say, okay, the meanings might differ, but they don't contradict themselves. So there's like this, like there's like these state. It's kind of like the stages of grief, but it's like the stages of denying preservation. The stages of denying preservation is what the Muslims go through, and then they end up at this stage here where they say, yes, okay, the meanings do differ from each other, and yeah, there are differences in the if you compare the two, there's going to be different words. There's going to be missing words, here or there. And yeah, the meanings will change on the individual verses. Then okay, so they go. So once they're at that point now, they want us to believe that they're all from God. They're all from God now. Okay, so they're saying every single one of these versions are from God. Okay, so that's what they're telling us. Now, at the same time, well, here's the problem. The problem is if you're saying that these are all from God, and then your jurists are now banning, this is from God. It's like imagine if you're in a I never really know what kind of analogy to use for like us as Christians, how we can relate to this, but it's like imagine if like you're talking about, like, let's say the Gospel of John, and you have like a church, you only read the Gospel of John at this church. You can't read the Gospel of Mark, Gospel according to Mark, Gospel according to Matthew. You can only read the Gospel according to John. The other ones are banned. And then you have like countries making laws saying things like this gospel is banned and this gospel is banned. But then as Christians, we're telling you these are all inspired word of God. These are all from God. It's like Muslims they're going to be looking at us like, what are you talking about? Why are you banning it from your churches then? If this is from God and this is from God, why are you banning it from your churches? Why are your jurists banning it from your countries? So as you pointed out, sister, you have Morocco and Algeria banning the Hafs Quran inside their mosques as being recited. You have Saudi Arabia doing the same exact thing, except they're saying anything other than Hafs, especially during the what is it called, the Tarawih, the Tarawih prayers. Like you can only do the Hafs during Ramadan and stuff. And so they have like rulings on this. So it's like now they're at the point where like the Muslim who admits that there are differences and there are different Qurans, but they don't differ in like the message of Islam, which we could argue that point. But what we're just trying to say today is that they have versions of the Quran that they're banning from behind the mosque. So is this the word of Allah that you're banning? Who are you to ban the word of, why are you banning the word of Allah? Why is your country banning the word of Allah? Why is your sheikh, why is your scholars, why are they banning the word of Allah? Those are our questions for the Muslims. All versions go back to the same. That's not true. But anyway, we can talk about that after. Go ahead, sister.
So if all those different Arabic Qurans goes back to identified as the word of Allah, while they've got like contradictions in it, if all goes back to Muhammad as the one who kind of passed it around, Then another basic question is like, did Muhammad said okay to Hafs Quran, or which version of Hafs Quran? Did Muhammad said okay to wash Quran, while there are differences in it? And someone called Abu Anna, that all versions go back to the same rhythm. I don't want to break your heart, but you've been lied, and that's a huge lie. Examples are coming from examples are coming from Muslims, such as Surah 57 and 57:24. There are some extra rhythms in that. It doesn't have in other Qurans, as well as Surah 3 verse 133 is one of them. All I can say is you just need to wake up. Okay, so someone lied to you. Even let's say all of them have the same rhythm. Okay, sake of the argument. Then why your scholars are saying, oh, that they've got problems, you can't recite those different Qurans?
Yeah, and by the way, just on the point on this point about all of these versions of the Quran, they go back to the same rasam. Like what they're saying is that, okay, so in Arabic, in order to read it, you need to put markings and dots on the letters that differentiate themselves. So to differentiate the letter B from the letter Y from the letter T, it's just a matter of where you're going to put the dots. So what they're saying is, if you remove those dots, then that's what you call like the skeletal consonantal text, or the rasam in Arabic, the rasam. Now, what they're saying is that that's all it is. So you can just kind of add these dots, and then you get this version of the Quran. You add the dots somewhere else, you get this version of the Quran. That's what they're saying. As you pointed out, sister, that's not true, because we have these versions of the Quran where they put an entire word in, or they take an entire word out, depending on your perspective, which one is the original. If there's, however you're arguing this point. So we have an example here, as you pointed out, chapter 57. Okay. Chapter 57, as Sister Hatun said, verse 24 in Hafs, and 23. It's verse 23 in Qalun and Warsh. And you'll see here that this is an entire Arabic word. Now, you can forget about this little marking here, Fatha and Dhamma. You can forget about those, because we're going to say, okay, remove all those, and then, it has the same consonantal script without the dotting, without these dots at all. You look down at this verse here, the same thing, and it's and they highlight it in pink font for us. And you see the word Allah here on the first one. You can see my mouse hovering around it. There's Allah, and then the word al-Ghaniya, and then you have the word huwa in between. So you go down here, you have Allah, and then where's huwa? It doesn't exist. So if it was true that you just take away these little dots, like these little dots above the letters here, or sometimes you have it below, like right here. If it was true that you just remove those dots and it has the same exact identical text, then why is there an entire word that's gone missing? Because we're not talking about the dotting at this point. So what Muslims, early Muslims have documented this. In fact, they have books on this where there are differences between the different scripts. Some of them have this, some of them have that. And what they do is they have their kind of answer is that when Uthman, when he made his kind of master copy, the edition of it, that the different versions that he sent out, that those ones had scribal errors in them. I'm not talking about Muslim scholars now. I'm talking about, this is what scholars of Islam, so in like the university, will say. Not Muslim scholars. They won't say. Well, some Muslim scholars like Haytham Sidqi do say things like scribal errors. So he's a Muslim scholar. He does say scribal errors. Who's that? The other guy, the Ismaili guy. What's his name? Khalil Andani. He also says scribal errors. So you do have some Muslim scholars who who are believing, confessional Muslim scholars, confessional scholars of Islam, meaning they adhere to the faith of Islam. They will say things that there were scribal errors in those original, Uthmanic copies of the Quran, that there were actually scribal errors. And that's the position that everyone who studies this topic says. Muslims will have different answers as to why that is, but it gets us to this one point here, that it doesn't have the same rasam. It doesn't have it. So and some people say there's like 4 different ones, or some people say 5. I think some people say there's up to like 12 or 14 different copies there. But anyway, so that's just to respond to that point.
So that is like one word of Allah got into the deep holes and got lost. It's
yeah,
not,
and so here's the evolution here, sister. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it doesn't matter if it's changed the meaning or not. Did Allah said that word, or did Allah not said that? Which one is on the eternal tablets? That's the question, because I'm assuming you are Mr. Muslim or Mrs. Muslim, whatever. Or if you are Muslim, Orthodox claim is not Orthodox claim which is done within last 20 years is Quran has been perfectly preserved, dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound, word by word. That's the so then the question is, here's the 2 different Arabic Qurans just Brother Jai showed you on the screen. Did Allah said that Arabic word, there are only 2 letters, like very, very small Arabic words, even like imams look at it and then they kind of say, oh, it's all the same, until they like bring their face into the Quran and then they say, oh, this word is not there. That small Arabic word, it's not there. When Allah was passing his eternal word to Angel Gabriel, then Angel Gabriel is passing to the Muhammad. What happened? Did Allah said it, or did Allah say it, or he didn't say it? Is it written in the eternal tablets? That's the question. And it's not only about rasm or not. Like, let's say, sake of the argument, this is just nothing. You've got bigger problems when you just put 2 Qurans together, because it contradicts the Quran. One of them is question, other one is not question. One of them is statement, other one is like, oh, Allah knows best. So like very much messed up on that. If you are making a claim that yes, there are different Arabic Qurans, it's all good because content of the word of Allah is the same, then that's different argument. So I guess at this stage, best way to move forward is take the camera in front of you and then say to the camera, I apologize to all Muslims who become a Muslim because they believe that Quran has never been changed. There is only one Quran, dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound, word by word, exactly the same all around the world. If you become a Muslim because of that, please walk away from Islam, because that was a huge lie. Quran has been changed, it's developed and still developing. Here's some of the latest version of the Quran we have in our hands. I will produce you a different argument regarding the truthfulness of Islam. So you can make such video and then say all these different Arabic Qurans have the same content. Then we need to start dealing with that, but don't do that, because that argument already being debunked with the different version of the verses itself. So come up with different argument and then we move on from that.
Yeah, so you see how the first statement, I don't know if we can go back, but to show the first statement and then show this one back to back.
Like
one of them,
it was the same rasm and not but meaning doesn't change.
Yeah, so it goes from saying there's no differences in them at all if you take away the dots. There's no difference between that text. And then all of a sudden we show there's differences. Okay, but it doesn't change the meaning. It's like exactly what I was talking about earlier. You have these different stages that Muslims will go through. First, they say things like there's no differences at all. Then they say, okay, there's dialectical differences. And then they say, okay, it's not dialects. Okay, it's the meanings do differ, but it doesn't contradict. And then they go on and on and on through and so that's exactly what we just saw a live demonstration of that right here.
I had the Imam other day. He was expressing that he holds the Orthodox Salafi belief of dot by dot, letter by letter, sound by sound preservation of the Quran, which starts with the history when Uthman compiles it. And then as he start looking at the verses, he was like, oh, it's all same. It was same. And then it become, oh, it's similar. And then it just like, it's the same. Arabic is very complex. And then he looks at the next, and then next verse, and then just like, I need to ask to my imam, and his imam, he's going to ask his imam to figure out what is the next stage. So yes, it is all the same rhythm, and then content didn't change yet. Doesn't help at all. Doesn't help at all.
Yeah, and so the differences are actually bigger than, you know, we can get into specific examples, but there are the legal differences. There are people who write about, Muslims who write about this. They talk about the variants that cause different legal differences, or they maybe not cause different legal differences, but let's say one jurist who wants to argue a specific point will use a verse if it's you know, one version, and then the other jurist who's debating him will take that same verse in another version and try to argue his point. And they're both trying to make laws about what is Islam, what are the laws of Islam. So
remember
yeah.
Do you remember the
like the middle
video
prayer.
Yeah, so you've got like a middle prayer or not, but do you remember there was a video of it's flied away from my mind. It flied away from my mind. So.
Okay. Oh, if it comes back, just just let us know. But basically, you have these variants that will amount to legal differences. You have variants that are contradictory, like you pointed out. Some of them are saying yes, the other ones are saying no. I mean, so there are contradictions between the different readings, and when we even talk about the different readings, it's like we're accepting the what the Sunni Muslims will say as to what these readings are. But historically, are there more than just 7, or more than just 10, or more than just 14? Of course there are. There are some of the scholars say there's countless hundreds and hundreds. So you have a big problem for even finding these and making it. I mean, no Muslim would be able to come on this channel and make a case for why Ibn Mujahid chose the 7 that he chose. So
I remember what I was gonna say.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, so remember this Muslim sheikh with talking about Jesus knows the last hour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What does he say at the end? Well, depend which reading you pick, you have to deal with it.
Yeah. They're making a problem and they have to deal with it. They have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And he's another one who said
So
you just take away the marks. Yeah.
Yeah. Repeat that sentence again for me, brother. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he's another one who says you just take away the dots. But his position was you take a reading that's not in any of the canonical readings, and like you said, he says this is their problem and they're stuck with it now.
Yeah, depend which Quran you pick, it gives you different theology, it gives you different
problems.
Muslim lifestyle, it gives you different problems, but at the end, it produces more giant holes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the clip we listened, where it has been expressed, if there are different, if you are reciting different Quran, then simply don't go who is reciting different Quran versus. So it's like that simply shows us it cannot be, they don't see both of them as the perfect word of Allah, because they know it affects their prayer life. Like criteria apparently in early days was, are you able to pray behind this person or not? If yes, then yeah, it's all the same. If not, no, it's a problem.
Yeah, Muslims now, people brought up Muhammad hijab as an example. He's now saying things like, "Who told you word for word?" And you have a video where he literally says word for word. And what scholar said that? You know, and then you have Farid admitting that Yasir Qadhi, you know, David Wood got him to admit that Yasir Qadhi lied, and that was really so you have Farid, you have Muhammad Hijab, they're all exposing and backing down from this position that Muslims once held to. It's kind of like the scientific miracles thing, you know. It's like that they, you know, now they're all saying, well, not all of them, but you know, Ali Dawa is popularizing it. That you know, this is false. It's been debunked. Absolute nonsense. It's been debunked. And Muslims, the Muslims get confused about it. What do you mean by this? What do you mean? Why did you say this? Why did you say that? For the preservation of the Quran one, that caused a lot of them to doubt Islam because it was coming from someone like Yasir Qadhi, and a lot of them left it. I mean, you know, many Muslims who left Islam because of that.
Yeah. It's just like you, as a Christian, we get on our, at the end, as a Christian, we cannot transform anyone's heart. That's the work of the Lord. So you get on your knees and then you pray for those individuals who you met, who you had conversation, and then you pray that Lord draws them to himself. And then the way Lord works is like not the way I'm teaching and talking. And then other Mr. Muslims, I don't want to be any more Muslim because these are all already been lying to me. So God uses those statements to draw people to himself. So that's very, very good for us.
Amen. And so we have a comment on the screen from one of the Muslims who comes on the channel quite a lot. And he says, let's learn the 7 Ahruf. And he says, beautiful recitation. So we want to ask him, where can we find these 7 Ahruf? Where can we find them? And how do you know that they're beautiful recitations? Let's see if he'll interact on that point.
Okay, Mr. Muslim, where can we find those Ahrufs? And then once we find them, we will make the decision if they are beautiful or not.
I just want to say, I just want to respond to this comment saying that it's honestly ridiculous to claim that there are different versions based on this. We have another Muslim scholar that we were just listening to yesterday, where he is the one who actually said the word version. The Muslim scholar said that. So, so yeah, you're gonna have to contend with Muslim scholars who are now saying that these are different versions of the Quran in Arabic. Not translations, not talking about English versions or no, we're talking about Arabic versions of the Quran. And he was talking about the different versions that exist between the companions. Okay, so anyway, go ahead.
So just so that I understand correctly, the things we are kind of verbalizing is actually source of those things are Muslims. Not Christians or not the critic of Islam, but they are Muslims. So we are picking those vocabularies from Muslims. As Mr. Muslim, who is going to provide us these 7 Ahruf, and then we are going to listen how beautiful those recitations are. As he searches for that, I think just like as a good Christian, we help him out. Don't go to Yasir Qadhi because Yasir Qadhi is going to tell there are 40 different views, but bottom line is we don't know what Ahruf is. Allah knows best.
Yeah, on this one, we'll let them do the I remember reading one scholar who I think is a contemporary scholar, like from Saudi Arabia, and he said, you know, this is an issue that I searched and searched and searched and searched and searched. And at the end, I just came to only Allah knows.
Yeah, so those are the things. To know what is the 7 Ahruf is just problem by itself. Okay, so brother, I'm gonna move to the clip.
Okay.
Let's both of us keep eye on the chat, because since Mr. Muslim wants us to listen to these beautiful recitations, when he provides them, we make sure we don't miss it, because we don't want like Muslims to say, I gave them all the answers and they didn't give me attention. Just
Yeah, we have
produce
our
our-
eyes in the chat, and we are looking for the 7 ahruf, where they are.
Yeah. Yes, and after that, of course, put the link, and then we listen them, and then we figure out how beautiful they are. Until you figure that out, let's continue with the video.
Well, okay. So let's first address oral transmission. When in Arabic, if you are transmitting something orally, it must undergo changes. That's a golden rule, that you don't ever have any text that was transmitted orally in any culture, Chinese, Japanese, Latin, Greek, Arabic, Hebrew. If you are transmitting something orally, it must undergo changes. This is a golden rule in oral transmission. If you have a text that doesn't have changes, this is where you start raising questions that most probably it wasn't transmitted orally. You should think in the other way. Anything that is transmitted orally without being fixed in a written text, it undergoes changes. So this is why you actually, when you talk about the different qira'at, the different readings, canonical or non-canonical, the fact that you have so many variant readings that agree with the rasm and actually those that do not agree with the rasm, it gives you actually confidence, because you have all these different variants. If you pick a poem from the 3rd century Hijri or 4th century, you will never find any single variant in this poem. But if you pick up a poem from pre-Islamic period or early Islamic period, you will find that there are so many variants in this poem because it was actually transmitted orally, right? So when any text is fixed in writing and voweled, etc., this is where you stop having variant readings. The same with the Quran. Why, after Ibn Mujahid, variant readings started to diminish? Because writing the codices, they were all voweled, they were all exactly dotted. There was no chance for people to disagree in how they were reading, unlike the first 200 years, where there was so much space for disagreement among the Qurra concerning how to vowel the words. Probably to think about it from the other way, that if you have something orally transmitted and passed down from one generation to another, actually it's more susceptible to changes than a text which is fixed in writing. It's not the other way. So people, usually have this, I would say maybe a misconception that if something is transmitted orally, it means that it gives you more confidence that it is verbatim. Oral transmission is not about verbatim transmission. It's about content transmission and variation on the text, which happens in any recited text, religious or non-religious.
Brother, for centuries, we heard that Quran has been perfect preserved because we've got golden transmission. We've got this oral transmission that never changed. So Quran, not even to the dot, changed today, and they are very proud of their oral tradition. Yet, if my ears are on my head, and if I am hearing correctly, Shadi Nasir is saying oral tradition is not trustworthy. Did I get that right?
So he takes the normal Muslim script about oral transmission and he flips it on its head, and he says, actually, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Because it's oral, you have so many different versions of it, and the point of oral is not verbatim verbatim. It's more about content. And actually, he pointed out the thing that we were talking about earlier, which is that you have some versions. And he talked about them being based on the rasam or agreeing on the same rasam, and then he said some of them don't agree on the same rasam. So he actually used, without us even coming to this point in the video, he made the same point that we were just talking about earlier that we were proving in chapter 57, verse 24. So yeah, he's saying that because it's, for example, just as an example, when you have like the like tablets or something, like Sumerian tablets. Written in like cuneiform and Akkadian, whatever. there's not like different versions of it. There's only one. It's a tablet. We can even go to them today, and we have the originals. It's one. There's only one. But a text that exists in oral form, before it becomes text. So it exists as oral, then it comes text. He's saying that there's going to be variance by the nature of just oral transmission. So he turns the Muslim claim that they boast about the Quran being oral on its head, and says because it's oral, that's how we know there are so many different versions.
So let me just verbalize if I understood what you are saying, if I correctly understood what you are saying. You are saying when we look at the, let's say, tablets in British Museum, okay? You've got tablets in British Museum dated 1800 BC. You've got tablets in British Museum dated 720s. They're written form of stories or contracts, whatever whichever you are talking. You are saying you've got only one version of that, and that's like 700 BC or 1400 BC or 1800 BC, depend which one you are talking about. And then you are saying, while it is written down, we've got only one version of them, but when we come to 7th or 8th century AD, the written version kind of is not important anymore. It becomes oral tradition. Verbalizing things becomes more important. Orally passing things becomes more important, or that's what they do. With that, we end up having many different versions of one story.
Exactly. In fact, I was just looking up a hadith today, and I was on when I was on the search engine looking for it, I saw so many different variations of this hadith. There was like an entire page, and some of them would use certain vocabulary words, some of them would use synonyms, some of them would. So they don't agree on the exact wording, because initially these are sayings, and then they were put down into writing. But because they were sayings beforehand, a lot of different, as you said, like it's telling a story. It's like they adapt and they morph, and then some, the content generally stays the same, but the meaning for each individual word, is that verbatim preserved? No, it's not. Especially in this case that we're talking about with the Quran and Hadith as well. But we're talking about the Quran, yeah. So that's the point that he's making here, and it's really flipping the Muslim point on its head.
Even when you look at the Hadith, I've got like all the not all, I've got lots of kind of contradictions within the Sahih Bukhari Hadith, where you've got like Hadith which says, I think this person used this word, this person said this, or even it says like, I'm not sure if that's what I heard. But when it comes to Quran with all different versions, well, they're not saying, well, we are not sure what it is.
Yeah.
They are just giving us the different version of it. So oral tradition failed, and now we are hearing from experts on their topic is simply telling us, by default, oral tradition will give you different versions. It's good to remember that. So do not trust the oral tradition in this occasion. Shall I continue, brother? I saw something on the screen.
Oh yeah, someone was just asking for where are the beautiful 7 Ahruf? That's what
I thought I saw the 7 Ahruf. I just thought, oh, maybe they found it and then we are gonna listen to it. No, we are still waiting.
The Muslims know that we didn't forget, and we're just trying to wait for them to give us them.
Waiting. No good. If I am sure if you already identify them as beautiful recitations, listen to them. So it should be just like on your fingertips. Just should be very easy to provide those references for us.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, let's.
Yeah.
Very easy.
We can continue on. Yeah.
Let's continue.
Usually have this, I would say maybe a misconception that if something is transmitted orally, it means that it gives you more confidence that it is verbatim. oral transmission is not about verbatim transmission. It's about content transmission and variation on the text, which happens in any recited text, religious or non-religious. So the text of the Quran, the consonantal outline, which we call rasm. So when I say rasm, it means the consonantal outline of the Arabic without dots and without vowels. You can see here that between Uthman and Ibn Mujahid, almost 300 years, into the sources, you will notice that many Muslim authorities, they were reading the Quran. There were several readings spreading across different regions in the Muslim world. Yes, there were readings more popular than other readings, especially in, for example, in Basra, 2 maybe or 3 eponymous. When I say eponymous reading, it means a reading developed by one system. Let's say Abu Amr, for example, or Hassan al-Basri or Yaqub. So they are professional Quran reciters that professors of qira'at, let's say, and they developed a whole system, a transmission of one verse or one specific variant. So there are so many, in the sources, there are many system readings or eponymous readings that are documented in the sources. So for example, you can work by Al-Hudhali, it's called Kitab al-Kamil fi al-Qira'at al-Khamsin. There are 50, so now we talk about the 7 or the 10 readings. There were more than 10 readings. So there were at least 50 according to Makki al-Qaisi here. He says, for example, here that people are narrating transmissions of the Quran about the 7 readers, but people mentioned more than even 70 readers who are even more trustworthy and more scrupulous than those 7 readers that people talk about. So there were at least 50 to 70 documented eponymous readings or system readings that Muslim sources mention. So you can of course see that this is a problem when it comes to creating a unified system. And this is where Ibn Mujahid seven readings, which until today, and he collected these 7 readings from a plethora of different system readings that Muslims were using back then. So there are several criteria that I will address later on based on what he chose these readings, but we can assume that, though according to him at least, they were the most popular readings in these 5 cities, 5 major cities of the Muslim world. So Basra, Kufa, Syria, Mecca, and Medina. He chose 7 readers from these 5 big cities, and he didn't really directly say that other readings are shawaz. The term shawaz, non-canonical, it took a little bit of time to, again, to be standardized, but he chose those 7 readings to be the representative readings to in these 5 cities. Now, what Ibn Mujahid did, of course, was a great service to the system. He tried to unify things, and this is where I studied the book, his book, the Sab'a fil Qira'at, and tried to understand how did he collect these readings. So you can see that it's a very complicated process. It's very similar to how someone is collecting hadith in that sense. So you see Ibn Mujahid here at the bottom. He has different informants, and he goes to each one of them, and then he asks about the reading of Nafi', right? So sometimes he has a full edition. He would recite the whole Quran with some of his teachers. Sometimes it's partial. You can see here that between Nafi' and Ibn Mujahid, you have the name of Warsh and you have the name of Qalun. Those 2 people now, they become transmissions from the reading of Nafi'. And the question that I ask in the book is, what happened to all these other readers, right? And more or less, most of these other readers who also transmitted from Nafi', they fell mostly into the realm of non-canonical. So the shawaz, basically Warsh and Qalun, they survived and they became the mostly used recitations in the Muslim world until today. And they are the only, if you want, legitimate representatives of Nafi'. The same is true for other readers. So you see Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, the Basran reader, he has so many students transmitting from him. And this is Ibn Mujahid. He's collecting from all these different informants the reading of Abu Amr. There are disagreements, agreements among them. But again, what survived is basically this guy only.
There are approximate, in 935, Muslims are listing 50 different Arabic Qurans. And as the time goes on in the same kind of stage, man who never met with Muhammad, Ibn Mujahid, never met with Muhammad, never had revelation from Angel Gabriel, decides what Muslims are going to read. He picks up out of 50 or 70 and then decides what Muslims are from now on going to recite. As I'm sure you all picked up, like how he made that decision. If you haven't, that's good, because this stage is just all about who knows whom. How is your relationship with the Mujahid? So you get to the list. Brother, what are your thoughts on how these different readings are happen to be in our hands from 935?
Yeah, and notice how the 50 or 70 readings that existed in that time, they were said to be more scrupulous, like more accurate than the 7 readings that Ibn Mujahid chose. So people are saying, look, the readings that you chose, there are better ones than that, better readings than those readings. Which tells you what? It tells you that Muslims back then didn't have the same view of these readings that Muslims have today. Today, Muslims will tell you all of these readings are from God, they're all inspired, etc., revealed, or whatever language they want to use. But in that time, when they're actually being canonized, people were critiquing them and saying things like, what are you doing? There's 70 different versions that are better than these ones. Why'd you pick these 7? And that's, and a lot of the scholars, they were so confused why Ibn Mujahid only chose 7. And they also blamed him as well. They said, look, because of you only choosing 7, and as you said, sister, he was the only one who could make that choice. Why did he make the choice? Like you said, because he had political power. It wasn't that, it wasn't that like, Allah gave him, he's like a prophet or something, and he has his revelation. He's, I know what 7 to, no, he had political pull, and he had people who disagree with him. He had people imprisoned, he had people beaten, lashed for not accepting his readings or wanting to use other readings in prayer, like Ibn Mas'ud's reading, Ibn Shenabuth, for example, the famous case with that. He was imprisoned, he was whipped, he was lashed, he was forced to recant and say, okay, fine, I accept only your 7. So, okay. You have those different versions that are existing in that time, 70 different versions, 50 different versions, whatever. Ibn Mujahid chooses just 7 of them. And the scholars, their scholars were really confused and upset with him, and they blamed him, and they said, why did you only choose 7? Because now the lay Muslim, the ignorant Muslim, is going to think that the 7 readings that you chose are the same 7 Ahruf that the hadith speak about. So he said, because of you, they were saying, because of you, and there were multiple scholars who said this, they said, because of you created this big confusion. And many of them said things like, okay, we need to add more readings now because we don't want to have people be confused. We don't want people to confuse the 7 Ahruf hadith with the 7 readings you chose. So much later, you'll see, in hundreds of years later, so we're talking 10th century to like maybe like the 16th century or so, Ibn Jazari, where now you have 3 more readings being introduced. So now you have it went from 7 readings to 10 readings, and really that's due to pressure and other things. But they had what I'm trying to get at is the overall thing I'm trying to say here is I'm not trying to be technical on the points or anything. All I'm trying to say is that the views that the Muslims had back then for these different versions is completely and it's radically different than how Muslims view it today.
Don't we have Muslim scholars such as Tabari, when he talks about these different Arabic, he prefer someone else's reading. He thinks other reading is better than this one. So those are like terms used. Therefore, it is not surprising for us to hear people claim those like 70 other Qurans are better than this 7 which is chosen by Ibn Mujahid.
Yeah, exactly. You have Muslims and by the way, Al-Tabari he was one of the teachers of Ibn Mujahid. So Ibn Mujahid didn't canonize his versions in that time. Al-Tabari was before these things were enforced. You have people like Al-Tabari who are saying things like, yeah, this is I reject this one because of this reason. Maybe it's bad grammar. He said it's bad grammar, or maybe he said things like this one makes more sense, or this one's more correct, this one's more accurate. And so obviously Muslims wouldn't talk that way today about the different readings. They wouldn't say, Hafs is more accurate than Warsh or something like that. And also we don't want to we want to say as well that Hafs is not something that was popular back then either, and that wasn't what the scholars were giving their commentaries on. Like the commentators, when they were giving commentaries of the Quran, they weren't using Hafs.
Because Hafs is identified as thief and liar. Even in early Islamic tradition, they knew they cannot trust thief and liars. But today, eternity of billions of Muslims depend on the thief and liar.
Exactly.
I think this person left his brain in the bathroom or somewhere. He's saying Christians don't know difference between versions and translation. Brother, would you be? I think I may be failing here because I'm not an English speaker. But my understanding is these different Arabic Qurans, even when we say different Arabic Qurans, we are saying they're written in Arabic. We are not talking about the translation. We are not talking about Sahih Muslim, we are not talking about Sahih International, Yusuf Ali, all that junk. We are not talking about them. We are talking about Arabic version of the Qurans. Am I correct? Or did I miss something? Maybe I left my brain in somewhere else. But
yeah, we've been talking about Arabic versions.
Arabic part.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about Arabic versions. We're not talking about translations. Translations, as you said, that's a different language. We're talking about the Quran in the different Qurans in Arabic.
The language Allah revealed.
Right. Yeah. And we're not talking about translation into English or translation into French or translation into Spanish. No, we're talking about the Qurans in Arabic. Differences in Arabic, as this comment says. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's the sheikh who was talking about the Jesus is the sign of the hour. It's something. My brain is no good today. Something came to my mind and fly away again. Did you pick up also by Shadir Nasir? He's talking about how people would go out and then ask, "Oh, can you tell me what is Nafis reading?" And as he gets the Nafis reading, he people who are passing him the Nafis reading, saying his student called this person's reading. This is Warsh reading. This is Kalun's reading. So even he's not getting the Nafis reading. So Nafi is the teacher, and then this teacher is lots of students. Okay, 2 of his students is well known as today is well known. Vosh and Kalun. So he's not getting teachers, he's not getting what teacher is saying, but he's getting what the students are saying. And we know throughout Islamic tradition how students were disagreeing with one another.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you think about it, like if you use the reading of Awesome, for example, that's under Awesome you have just like a big chart like this. You have Hafs and you have Shariba, and when you look at those, Hafs and Shariba, you see differences between them, but they're supposed to be getting it from the same Awesome, the same teacher, the same person, but they have differences between them. So Muslims need to explain that. I've heard Muslims say things like, "Oh, Awesome, he had 2 different readings," and like they have all these different ad hoc, bad, really bad explanations for why these exist. But it's a problem for them because the chains that they have, the chains that they have for the Qurans are very, very, very. I mean, we talked about them before. They're very bad, even according to Islamic standards. They're very, they have liars in them. They're not trustworthy.
Not only liars, they've got like people who were playing with the boys in a sexual sense.
Oh yeah.
That's just like disgusting. Not only like lying is like different level versus abusing a young boys as a man is like another different level.
Yeah, and we have a comment here from Abu who I don't remember seeing him before, but he's very interactive today, and we welcome that. We brought your comments on the screen. We want sometimes we have call-ins. You can call in the stream. You can join us. Other streams we do that. We allow that. We have that. We encourage Muslims to come in and to give their differences and try to prove us wrong.
Yeah, like if he's so passionate about the topic. Yeah, just drop us email. We can arrange stream, and then we can have the conversation and discussion like through the stream.
Yeah. So the idea here is that he's trying to present. We can't see it because of the video fully, but the comment is saying that in 1924, Hafs was viewed as closest to the original, hence became the standard.
In your dreams, that happened in your, maybe you haven't even had that dream yet. Maybe it was someone else's dream.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's the original? Yeah, what is this original?
Like, they think like by that stage they were holding the original. So
they didn't use any manuscripts at all.
Oh yeah, that was the point I was gonna make earlier. When it talked, when there was a comment on the, when there was a comment on the translation. Sorry, brother, my internet is not like acting how it's supposed to. Sometimes I speak over you. Sorry about that. No, on the when they translate the Quran, they didn't say, okay, let's go back to the manuscripts and then translate it from the manuscripts. They just like picked another translation, and then they used that. Like they just picked the Quran, whatever in their hand, and then they just use that to translate it. That's what even converts are doing now. They are just like, oh, I know English language, give me the English Quran, and then I translate that to Spanish or another language. They're not even using their manuscripts for the translation of the Quran at all. That's like problem by itself. In 1924, people didn't sit down and then said, okay, I've been praying, I've been looking at all those manuscripts, I've been comparing all those different Arabic Qurans, and I came to conclusion this Hafs Quran is the closest to the original. No, people didn't do that. Even sake of the argument, let's say if it is close to the original, still that means like you don't have the original version of it, you've got something like this is what you get. In 1924, they simply decided with Hafs Quran because thanks to Ottomans, while Ottomans took very big chunk of the world by that time, and then they were, as they went in, as they went to Europe, as they went to Asia, the Quran they were using was the Hafs Quran. So therefore, people in Egypt knew Hafs Quran better. people in Majaristan, in Hungary, they knew Hafs Quran better. So where Islam conquered, the Ottomans conquered, they were much, they knew Hafs Quran better than the rest of it. So the reason they decided they are going to use the Hafs Quran was simply students were giving different versions of the verses. So they decided from now on it's going to be Hafs. That was just for the school. And then it ended up in 1930s, they decided, okay, this is what's going to happen for Egypt. And in 1980s, they said, okay, Hafs Quran for all the world, when Saudi officialized it. And it is heartbreaking that closest to Quran, the Quran which comes to us as identified by Muslims, which is closest to the original, which means closest to the word of Allah, comes from a liar and a thief. Doesn't look good to me at all.
And you notice as well, sister, when he says closest to the original, he's kind of using like the language that we were talking about earlier, that like a Tabari would use, like saying this one's more accurate or this one. So he's actually comparing this to the other readings, and he's saying this one's closer than the other ones. So I don't know exactly what his position is on this, but if your position is that you have all these different readings and some of them, are closer to whatever the original is than other ones, then are they all actually Allah's word? Are they all actually given by Allah? Like how exactly do you work out preservation? And that's what Yasser Qadi was getting at as well. How do you work out preservation in relationship to the Ahruf, Qiraat, and etc.? How do you work out preservation with that? Then there's holes, there are holes. So I'm curious to hear this person's position, but even the wording, it's closest to original, means that the other readings are not close, or they're further away from the original. And when you say it's closest to the original, you're not saying it is the original. So even Hafs is it's the best we got, basically is what he's saying, but it's still not the original, but it's closest. It's almost there. And of course everything else that you said as well, exactly.
Yeah, think about it. If this gentleman turns up to Algeria and then says, well, I'm going to read the Hafs Quran, I'm going to read the Hafs Quran in the mosque because this is close to the original, what do you think will happen to him? I think in Algeria, Muslims in the mosque will say, okay, let's eat falafel and baklava. No, they are not allowing him to get away with this. Anyway, just you can simply email us, and then we can have like proper conversation on the topics. It's good that we are seeing you are engaging with us.
Yeah. So again, we welcome the interaction, and we maybe we'll have a stream where it's opened up and you can come join us someday, or as Sister Tune said, you can just email and we can set up a stream specifically with you coming on here. We do the whole stream with you on it.
Yeah.
So go ahead, sister.
We are up for those things. We love we are making mistakes. We don't want to be like Hafs. We don't want to be like Muhammad or Allah at all. So if you are mistaken, just we will stand corrected. Correct us, but make sure like you do your research before you turn up the before you drop email stuff. Shall I continue, brother?
Yeah, let's continue on.
As I understand in your book, and also Ayatollah Khoyi says, none of them are Tawatur. Even the Shia circles, look, I'm honest, maybe Hafs Asim, it wasn't necessarily Shi'i, but recently they say because he was in Kufa, maybe some connection. As you showed in one of the slides, they say that Usman ibn Affan and Ali ibn Abi Talib. So in this way, they want to say, okay, Qiraat Hafs as Asim is more Gashi, maybe more reasonable to be Medina or something like that, because imams were there. So I'm saying, can you, because this is the controversial one, can you, let's, I know your books there, chains are there, you show to that. Let's address this issue and then see the truth. I mean, how this thing is, how you judge it, whether these chains are reached Tawatur, or what the situation they have, or how is it the case?
Okay. First, on Khui's position on Tawatur, yes, as you said, he and I think most Shia scholars, they don't consider the qira'at to be mutawatira. And I think it's very clear in his, not in his introduction to the tafsir, in Urwa in Bab al-Salat, he has a section, I can send it to people if they're interested, and he clearly states the position of Shias. He said that the only reason we read Hafs an Asim is that because the majority of Muslims read Hafs an Asim. There's no such thing as maybe it goes to Ali, maybe it doesn't go to Ali. That's not the reason why they read for hundreds of years before the Ottoman period. And he stated clearly, we don't prefer one reading over the other. And now, and he very clearly, he said, now we read in Hafs according to the majority of Muslims, but there's no preference which reading we choose. So that's one. Second, concerning Tawatur, it's not only Shi'i scholars as al-Khu'i concerning the Tawatur. The discussion of Tawatur is old, even within Sunni scholarship. Before even the whole concept of Tawatur took place, there was discussion whether the qira'at are mutawatira or not. So it's not something that the other side, if you want, picked up. And the issue is Tawatur is a very concept that it's a concept that has to do with usul al-fiqh. Okay, what happened is that when you take a concept from one discipline and then you apply it to another discipline, this is where the Tawatur has nothing to do with chains of transmission. Like if you want chains of transmission and Tawatur, they are oil and water. Okay, meaning what? When Tawatur means that there is a concept or there's something that everyone is familiar with and everyone knows, okay? It reaches a stage where even you and I, we are from different backgrounds and we live in different places, that we agree on this certain topic or certain piece of information, and it can't be false because you and I, we have no reason to fabricate or create error, okay, in delivering this piece of information. And the typical example is, we say, oh, China is a country that exists, or New York exists in America, or the sun rises from the east. This is Tawatur, okay? It doesn't matter if you are Iranian, that China exists. So that's information. So what happened is that originally Tawatur was a concept that is used in epistemology. Okay, we want to differentiate what Tawatur is from Akhbar al-Ahad, from other levels of Akhbar, and then Usulis took that and then they applied it to Qira'at later on. And what happened is that you can't have chains of transmission and Tawatur at the same time. And that's what Shi'i scholars, including al-Khu'i, picked up later on, is that what does it mean that something is mutawatir but you have chains of transmission? So this is why Shi'is dropped chains of transmission whatsoever, and they said, well, Quran is mutawatir, we don't need chains of transmission, in a sense. So if you have something that is transmitted through 30 people or 40 people or even 50 people, that doesn't mean it's mutawatir. And the reason why is that local enclosed space, they are familiar with the reading of Abu Amr or Asim. And the perfect example is now, even today in North Africa, they're only familiar with one reading, but they are not familiar with the other readings. So how could the qira'at be mutawatira and known to every single Muslim if one region is only familiar with its own reading? And if you go back to in time, you will find that even in one region, there were different readings circulating among Muslims. And that's the point I was trying to flesh out in the book based on, again, Muslim opinions and Muslim sources, that there's debate among scholars. And the reason why we want to make qira'at mutawatira, it's a more or less an issue of usul al-fiqh. You want to establish the Quran and qira'at as the supreme source of law because it abrogates everything, and you can't make hadith abrogated. If the Quran is transmitted versus chains of transmissions, it stays on the a matter of usul al-fiqh rather than really a matter whether the Quran was really transmitted by Tawatur or not. So that's the issue here, is that the Quran, according to usulis, it is transmitted by Tawatur, at least the text of it, the rasm, and it's known to all Muslims. How to pronounce it and how to articulate its letters, that's debatable. Later Muslims, now you find it like the common, if you want, the mainstream opinion is that the Quran is mutawatir, and even in some masahif, they would write it al-mushaf bil-qira'a al-mutawatira, and every single person now, when you say al-qira'at al-sab' al-mutawatira, and every single modern scholarship in Arabic, you'll find al-qira'at al-mutawatira, al-qira'at al-mutawatira. It's like became something that you need to believe in rather than really something that you prove. So that's the issue. It's just mainly it's a concept that was taken from one discipline and applied to another discipline that created this kind of.
Okay, so Quran is not mutawatir.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny because Muslims, yeah. So I mean, one thing to say from the beginning, which is he's talking about the Shia, which don't really come up much in these discussions because they're so small, such a minority. But even for them, the only reason why the Shia use Hafs has nothing to do with the chain and whether or not Ali might be in there or might not be in there. It's to do with the fact that that's the most popular version today. But before that, he said they don't have a preference. They just use whatever version is the most popular version. So yeah, that's that. And then, as you said, this whole idea of like tawatir, mutawatir, etc. These things, Muslim scholars, they want you to say it today, like, yeah, these are all like, mutawatir and etc. But they're not. And he actually makes an argument against that, just like the Muslim scholars like Ibn Jazari did.
Do you remember the teaching of Yasin Dutan? He back in 2017 or something, he was talking about now Muslims are scholars are coming up and then expressing that Quran is not Tawatur. Do you remember that teaching?
I remember that. I remember also they mentioned this in the interview that Mimi Muhammad Hijab did as well. Not the one you're referring to, but I did want to say this point that they actually brought up this sheikh called Akram Nadwi, who actually gets brought up quite a lot.
Who was like authoritative.
Yeah. And he doesn't he says that the readings are not mutawatira. He says that.
So we can simply gently just tell Muslims to stop lying. Even when you take the Qurans like as it's been expressed in front of the Qurans, it says like, oh, this is all reliable and goes back to Muhammad stuff. That's like huge lie, and we shouldn't allow Muslims to get away with those lies. Anything else you picked up in this clip, brother?
I just thought that point was important to add on there because that's something that Muslims will often bring up a lot. They talk about their, for now we're at the point, is this even like, does it even have like tawatur or not? And then no, it doesn't. So the thing that Muslims claim all the time, the thing that they propagate all the time, like he said, they even print it as well. They even print this, and it's just false. They print it on the Qurans.
Yeah, it's in the introduction part of it. So don't fall into that one. I think we are 30 minutes into video. We've got like approximately 10 more minutes to go. We can pause here and then see if anyone have any questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Or not only that, but it's been like, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been while waiting for Mr. Muslim one playlist or something. We are waiting for Mr. Muslim to provide the recitation of 7 Ahruf for us.
Yes.
Where is it? Where is it? So this might be good opportunity for him to simply, I'll take the video down. This might be good opportunity for him to just provide this awesome, not awesome, sorry, beautiful 7 Ahrufs for us. And then also, if there is any other comments or questions on the topic which we discussed, bring them our attention again, or we just see if there is anything, and then we take it from there.
Okay.
So I try to keep eye on the chat. It's very difficult to see it because it's like too small, and but I didn't, with like old age, I didn't see that beautiful 7 Ahruf, brother. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I've been watching the chat as well. I saw that he left to go pray. He came back from his prayer, and now he's engaging in another conversation. But he forgot to show us the 7 Ahruf and where they are.
Okay. So we just reminded him this. Maybe he forgot it. Maybe we missed it. You never know. Would you be kind enough, and then just, if we missed it, post it again for us. We want to see those beautiful 7 Ahruf. I'm just like, I feel I'm gonna meet with the new God of Islam, because while like sheikhs are saying we don't know what is Ahruf is, this gentleman is gonna provide those Ahrufs, and they are gonna be beautiful. They were different, that people wanted to harm one another, but in 21st century they are going to be beautiful. Therefore, he's going to be new prophet or new God of Islam. So I'm waiting for it. I'm so excited. This is my excited face.
Okay, so we have another Muslim. So we're kind of interacting with two. Well, we're interacting with any Muslim who wants to say anything, but these are the two that we've been interacting with, at least. Well, this one is saying that the 7 Ahruf are not clearly defined. It's anybody's guess. So he's saying that, but the other Muslim was saying that the 7 Ahruf are actually beautiful, and maybe he has access to them since he called them beautiful. So we want to know where they are, and let us know how you know they're beautiful.
Yeah. We won't make like beautiful changes from one person to other person argument. At this stage, we just want to see those of them. There was another comment here. Let me put this. There's a question.
Yeah.
What do you think, brother?
We know that he was inspired with government and power, and he had the sword.
Money, and the money, sword and money.
Yeah. So if the inspiration is coming from sword and from the money, then yeah, that's where he's getting it from. If you're asking if he's getting it from Allah, yeah, we want to know from the Muslims. But forget about Ibn Mujahid. Did Uthman? Was that from Allah? Abu Bakr. Any of these. They even said, what do they say? They said, why would we, when they're first initiating this process with Zayd, he said, why would we be doing something that Muhammad never did? This, and then Allah had to give them, heart surgery. What did he opened up their chest or something like that.
Yeah, he opened their chest.
Yeah, he opened their chest, and then they had a change of their chest, and once their chest changed, their minds changed. So initially they said, no, this is something that Muhammad didn't do. Why would you expect me to do something? Why would you ask me to do something that Muhammad didn't even do? And then what ended up happening was the chest surgery, and they ended up changing their minds.
It seems to me, sorry, it's going to be a little bit different, but it seems to me God of Islam and Prophet of Islam, peace is policy, bodyguards be upon him at this stage. They have problem with chest. Remember, Muhammad hit her chest, Muhammad hits Ubay bin Ka'b in his chest. That
Oh
causes
yeah. Yeah.
causes problem, and then that problem is like because there are different Arabic Quran. So Ubay bin Ka'b gets beaten by Muhammad, and then
Mm.
Allah opens the chest of Muslims approximately 20 years after the death of Muhammad to not actually, sorry, 2 years after the death of Muhammad to compile the Quran. There is like some chesty thing are going on there.
Yeah, that happens. Like Aisha got hit, Ubay, you know. You have a lot of that. Yeah, it's a good point. That a lot of them are, and Muhammad himself, he had surgery as well. Remember, and he
Was it surgery? He just like had a heart taken out, and then
yeah.
new heart is his heart didn't help him at all because like he needed to ask forgiveness for his future sins, and that new heart is just like caused lots of pain.
Yeah, someone's Mel said here that Ali Dawa will soon tell us that the 7 Ahruf have been debunked. Yeah.
Keep eye on it, and then when you see it, just let us know.
Yeah.
We'll love to see how Dawa gangs are debunking Islam. That's like good to see.
Yeah.
So you made a point, brother. If you be double kind enough and then unpack that for me again.
Yeah.
So you talked about how Ibn Mujahid actually didn't receive any revelation from Allah. It was the political power, money and sword in that time, made him to choose he wanted. And then you bring that up to the first part of Uthman, that he didn't receive any revelation from Allah or from Angel Gabriel or even authority from Muhammad, yet he decided he's going to get rid of the different versions of the Quran and then produce one version of the Quran. What do you think that says about today's Quran?
Well, early, I think it was last stream that we did on this. We showed Shadi Nasser saying, I think it was in 2 different ways. He answered this by saying that Muslims do not have what Muhammad recited. They don't have that. They don't have it the way he recited. And in fact, there are a lot of scholars who say the same thing. And so here you have just again and again, people are telling us that Muslims, the way that you guys have the Quran today, the way you're reciting the Quran today, the version that you use is not the one that Muhammad recited, not the way that he did it. Now, we know this in a number of ways. So even if you say, for example, like, you know, the concept of abrogation, there's abrogation, right? There's different types of abrogation. And one of those types is removing the texts, kind of like the, you know, like it talks about
Adult breast suckling.
Yeah, exactly. The adult breast suckling is a good example of this. So there was a time when Muhammad was reciting the Quran when he recited that, right? That, or like the verse of stoning, for example. And you know, there's when Surah Al-Ahzab used to be longer than Al-Baqarah, and then there's 2 other, you know, there's other chapters that are just missing. And so Muhammad at one time recited verses, then those verses were abrogated, and so Muslims no longer recited them. So just by that alone, you don't have what Muhammad recited, because the things that were abrogated you don't have, so you're not reciting the same Quran that Muhammad recited. The other point is that even in there are linguists who study the different dialects of Arabic, and I know we have a question about the dialects of Arabic, and that we're going to get to as well. And they say that none of these Qurans, none of these readings would match up to the dialect of Muhammad that he would have used. So there's a lot of people that comment on this, and the conclusion is no, they don't have what Muhammad had. Now the scholars who comment on this, they're not saying that, you know, he had something like completely different, like it's like a world of difference. They're just saying what you have is not what he had, and what he recited is not, you know, he wouldn't have recited the same way. So what goes along with the recitation, I'm sorry, what goes along with the readings is recitation. So there's a particular melody, and there's different, like, imagine if it's like music, like holding notes or something. So if you're a Muslim and you know your tajweed, or you're former Muslim and you know tajweed, you know that there's a style, there's a way to recite the Quran that comes with every single different reading. Every different version of the Quran has their own style of reciting as well. So we're not talking about the wording right now. We're just talking about even how they recite the words. So Muhammad, the idea that Muhammad recited it in all these different ways, or he recited, or they had exactly how Muhammad recited it, it's just that's not what the scholars say.
Yeah, so just look, forgetting the tradition, forgetting the different Arabic Qurans, just looking at tradition tells us the verses which were supposed to be there, they revealed by Allah, it was practiced. Muhammad that part, and then you look at the current version of it, let's say like whatever they put together from now on, that's what it's supposed to be. When we look at from time of Uthman to today, we get to see there are continental differences within the Qurans as well as within the manuscripts. And then you just look at today's Qurans, and then you ask the basic question, which version did Allah revealed? Which version? Like, what is in those tablets? And I remember that Muhammad Hijab's authority, the young guy who was sitting between Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa, simply answered that question, and answer was, we don't know. Allah knows the unseen. So please, like, don't make the claims that we've got the Muhammad's Quran. You don't have it. And deep down, you should know that, like, those are very basic Islam 101. Any other? So it's been, I think it's been like almost, let's say extra 10 minutes. I didn't check the time before, for us to get this beautiful 7 recitation.
Yeah.
Like my fingers, I've been like doing this. My
Waiting, fiddling, yeah.
no, it's something else. Doing this anyway. There is a name for this action, okay? And my fingers lost weight, and still 7 beautiful recitations not here.
Yeah. So one check my playlist. He hasn't provided it. He hasn't provided them or the answer. So I don't think, you and I, we both know, and everyone else knows, we're not going to get an answer from them. But it was just,
I think at this stage it will be all right to say Muslims are quite okay to lie in the chat. They lie on your face as well, but they think it's like it's okay to lie in the chat because they say something is beautiful, and then you ask them, okay, let's start with the first part of the sentence. There are 7 recitations, so you must have them, show them, and then we move to the next part of the sentence, identify if they are beautiful or not. Mr. Laya, no good at all. No good at all. Okay, brother, I think we'll stop here. Okay. Overall, what is the highlight of your what is your take on from tonight's stream on from the teachings of Shadi Nasir?
A takeaway, I guess, kind of like the big summary point from what we heard today that I would say is worth repeating or kind of summarizing would be the fact that the different versions of the Quran that Muslims had and versus what they have today and their views of them. So you had in the 10th century 50 to 70 versions, and then you had that reduced to 7. And the views that Muslims had to those 50 to 70 versions saying these are more scrupulous, these are better, these are more accurate than the 7 that Ibn Mujahid chose. Like the way that they talk about the different readings, the different recitations, the different variations, the different versions of the Quran is completely different to how Muslims have been trained to talk about them today. And so that would be one of the takeaways. Of course, the fact that they're not also, they don't have Tawatur, they're not Mutawatir, like that's another one as well. And yeah, so that's kind of a takeaway, those 2 points there from Shadi Nasser today.
So this is what I'm hearing from you, brother, with my Turkish English language. Quran has been changed. Muslims just pick and choose which one they like. Or we can simply say standard narrative has holes in it.
Yeah, that's
and
a good way
they're
to
proud of
say
it.
Yeah.
they're proud of it.
Yeah, they're proud of it. Yeah,
Okay.
they're proud of it.
Yeah.
And they're proud they're going around saying it's been debunked, and they act like we're like when Ali Dawa was doing that, he made it sound like we're the ones that are like offended by it. Like you guys are in your dying in your rage. You got like why are we upset because you're saying that scientific miracles are debunked? Like he thinks that he's hurting us with that. and so I guarantee. If Ali Dawa starts rejecting the preservation, and he'll start saying, "You guys are so hurt that there's no perfect preservation. You guys are so dying in your rage. You guys are." It's like, no, you're helping us by saying that. We're not upset with you. We're actually cheering you on and saying, keep debunking these things. Keep telling us what has been debunked. Yeah.
It is strange. So those of you who are watching, also who is engaging with Islamic Dawa gangs on the book tables, they've got these book tables and they've got like lots of booklets in their book tables. They still have Zakir Naik's material on science and Quran. So turn up to those tables and then show that like less than a minute of Ali Dawai's video, and then ask them, why do you still give this booklet out? Apparently this is already been debunked. So you get to see their reaction to that. Muslims are debunking their other Muslims. Very soon, probably they will take out all those materials from the book tables. Of course, while we are expressing that Quran has been perfectly changed, while we are expressing, not actually, Muslims are expressing that, while we are expressing how Muslims are debunking Islam, for us, bottom line is, well, with the holes or without holes, Islam takes you to hell. With holes or without holes, Quran is not going to intercede for Muslims. With holes or without holes, liars are not going to help you to get to Islamic paradise. Probably with or without holes, those virgins are not going to wait for you. So therefore, the point is, while all those holes are being exposed, we can simply say, turn to the one who's got holes in his hand and who's got holes in his feet because of us, because he loved us and he is us. So that's real living word of God. That's Lord Jesus Christ. So turn to him before it is too late, while you are breathing out and breathing in, and you can spend eternity with him. Not only that, he will also intercede for you. Brother Joy, thank you very much for joining me. Do you have last comments?
I just want to echo what you said, sister. We not only want to expose the holes, like as you said, even if there were holes or no holes that were admitted to, the fact is that everyone that's listening to this, there's if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this, then you're going to have to give an answer. You're going to have to give an account for your sins before God. You're going to have to pay the price for those sins. And we have good news for you, that the Lord Jesus came and he paid the price for you so that you don't have to suffer, you don't have to go to hell. He took the wrath for you. And in order to be saved, the only way to be saved, the only way to have salvation is through the Lord Jesus Christ. So we implore you all, everyone who's listening to this who's not a Christian, who doesn't know the Lord Jesus, so this is for Muslim and atheist and rabbinic Jew, Hindu, whatever else you are, Buddhist, anything. We implore you to repent, to turn away from your current lifestyle and follow the Lord Jesus and believe in him, and you will have eternal life. So that's my final comment, sister, and my message to all of the people. And I just want to say God bless all the brothers and sisters. And yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much for joining me, brother. Sword is not going to pay for your sins. You are not capable to pay for your own sins. Money is not going to buy your paradise or heaven. Only blood of Lord Jesus Christ. So, by God's grace, we will see you tomorrow evening on another live stream with Robert Spencer. Until we see you, may Christ crucified silently with his love. God bless you all.